Good evening. Today is the 16th day of January 2016, and we are continuing with our explorations in Savitri, Book 2, the Book of the Traveler of the Worlds, Canto 4, the Kingdoms of the Little Life, as always with our brother Alok. This question was written to Sri Aurobindo, and it's very interesting. May I dare to hope that tomorrow you really will send me an installment of Savitri? And Sri Aurobindo writes, physically, mentally, psychologically, and temporarily impossible. But why is Savitri impossible, and in so many ways? Physically, I have to expend too much energy continuously on other things to have any left for poetry. Rather sad. Psychologically, I have no push to poetry just now, even if I had the time, which I haven't. Poetry needs time and space to be born, and neither exists for me now. And then he says, temporarily, your undeniable decrease in correspondence means only that instead of having no time to finish the correspondence, except by a breakneck hurry, and even then not, I have just time to do it. Even so, outside letters pile up in a neglected heap. Of course, if I give up the little time I have for concentration, I might be slaving all the day to make all other ends meet, but I have no intention of doing.
Which year was this?
This was 1937. So this is just before the beginning of the outbreak of the war.
Yes.
And you know what? I heard that Dilip Kumar Roy wrote him 4,500 letters. Imagine. And Amal's correspondence?
Nirodhara Das correspondence.
Yes.
Apart from that, plenty.
And Huda must have written Mother close to 5,000 letters.
Maximum letters by Huda. And this is only one part of the work.
Yeah.
Sri Aurobindo writes, Nirodha writes, how Sri Aurobindo's time got so much engaged, and how he would, his breakfast time would get pushed from 9 o'clock till 11, then 1 o'clock, and once at 3 o'clock. And Sri Aurobindo would never complain. That's a lesson for all of us. Would never complain that,
It was because Mother was delayed, you see.
Delayed for all the things.
Yeah.
So we are reading about a previous phase of evolution, and it's very interesting and important because it also gives us a clue about this phase of evolution, because the basic process is similar. And the process is, first, as we have read, there is something from within which begins to stir, like a chick inside the egg. Then there is a pressure from outside. Because of its stir or a call or a need, call it whatever, something comes from above which corresponds to that inner awakening. And when the two meet, actually in terms of matter, a new creation is born. New creation here was living beings. It was as new to earth as today, that tomorrow the supramental creation will be. But when it is born, there are 2-3 phases. First is when that new force is overpowered by matter, becomes subordinate to matter, almost like its slave. The next is when it begins to become more and more awake and assert itself. And the third is when that force begins to use matter as its instrument. So these are the 3 stages, and exactly the same process will happen with the supramental light. So it has come, at first it looked like it has become subordinated to the mind.
Yes.
And the mind will use it for all kinds of things. But because it is a greater power, it will begin to emerge itself, assert itself. There will be a kind of battle between all kinds of mental aspects and the supramental consciousness, and then it will uplift the mind to the intuitive stage. And this is described even in the Vedas when they speak about Agni on one side as the firstborn, is the origin, the source from which everything emerges. But Agni is also described as the child which is newborn, which must be fostered. So, in terms of the entire cosmos, Agni is the originator of all creation, Jata Vedas. He knows all the births. But it has entered into the subconscient, and much later the material being in humanity begins to become aware of this flame. So then he says he's the newborn child, the offspring of our desires, someone whom we must cherish. So this is how the whole process takes place.
Sri Aurobindo gives a lot of clues in Book 11.
Yes, in Book 11.
But Mother tells us even more about the supramental and its force and its working.
Yeah, a lot more, yes.
In the agenda especially.
In agenda. At
Yes.
one place he even says, and that is a very, if you don't see the context or read the totality, if you read just that, this is a diary note which later came out. She says, I can see that with the coming of the supramental force upon earth, what a great confusion it is going to create, because human beings, when they have the supramental force, a greater power at their command, but they have not yet completely purified themselves of all egoism.
Yes.
It is going to create a conflict far more terrible than when man had only the mental power.
Yeah.
She has foreseen it. She has used the word confusion and a terrible conflict because now there will be a much greater power. And that's why toward the end in the agenda, she kept pushing for, tell your ego the hour is gone. This is the work, this is the work, this is the work. Because if you keep the ego and the supermind together, it's going to blow up. So repeatedly she says that. Because it's so dangerous, so dangerous. So we continue. The kingdoms of the little life, obeying the push of unborn things towards birth. You see, if you read these few lines so many ways, even Shobindo, you can connect it at various levels, including physical birth, because basically it's all on a same plan. Obeying the push of unborn things towards birth, out of her seal of insentient life she broke. In her substance of unthinking, mute soul strength that cannot utter what its depths divine. This is how actually poetry is born. This is how all creation is born. There is an urge, and suddenly that urge bursts forth and takes a form and substance. Evoke a blind necessity to know. And first it awakens. There is a little stir. And what does that light do? It doesn't immediately make you feel, it is light. But the urge to know, because this is how we become ready to even receive it. And now comes something marvelous. The chain that bound her, she made her instrument. So first phase is that matter binds the new power. It sets limits. Imagine life coming, rushing down from those great plains and vanishes in an algae and a moss. Becomes a worm, a little bacteria, a little virus. But then this life begins to use this matter as its own instrument and eventually makes that little worm not just crawl but fly and leap and do marvelous things in man. So this is how the process takes place. Instinct was hers, the chrysalis of truth. So what it does, because it has come from that truth plane, so matter is limited. So what it does is that it fills it with instinct. Even at the most material creation, leaving aside when life has fully manifested, there is an instinct, and we use the word rule and law in atoms. But in animal life, it is driven by instinct. But if you see the instinct within limits, there is a perfection, as if the creature knows what it must do. Trees, there is a typical example of a tree found in Gujarat. where they notice that if they put some kind of a hard material so that the roots cannot dig deep, so what the tree does it, the root will hang on to that hard material, rock, and then it will send signals up, and from within the tree a new chemical will be secreted that will slowly drop by drop pierce through the rock, and eventually over years the root will go past the rock and
Yes.
find the roots below.
And recently, they've discovered the most amazing thing. There's a tree that cannot grow in a certain area.
Yes.
It doesn't have the nutrients, the soil is wrong, the water is wrong, and the tree is thriving. They found that 50 miles away, the same species is sending a fungus underground to feed that tree.
Yes. Amazing things in the world of life. Even when you see the play of these, snakes and rats and cats, and how they really, by instinct, they know the danger, and the predator knows how to prey upon.
Yes.
With the perfection. I mean, man can't get this perfection, and they know it. I mean, when the tsunami came, because we are now mind driven, we have lost that instinct because we have to rediscover it as intuition. But the animals know what's going to happen.
Yes.
And they begin to behave in a crazy way. However, they sense it. There are so many ways, so many theories, but they are aware. And just by instinct they act, and nature's work is fulfilled.
But there was that island,
Yes.
and that saint or whatever he was, a realized soul, he warned all the people, and he said, go to the top of the mountain. And not one person was injured in that tsunami, and the place was
Yes.
just covered.
If you can arrive at intuition, then it's
Yeah,
perfect. Instinct was Hertz, the chrysalis of truth. So, what is intuition in the higher planes becomes instinct in the planes of life or animal world. And effort and growth and striving nescience in dicting on the body, inflicting on the body desire and hope. So, life comes in, and that's why at one place Sri Aurobindo says, desire was the helper, desire is the bar. So, desire is meant to push the clod. That's why it's, some people who give hurried advices and say, no, you should meditate. There are some lazy, indolent people who will find it a very good advice, and they would just say, okay, very good, and sleep off. And that's why even in monasteries, people are not accepted just like that. No. Because it's not an escape. You have to pass through a phase where you grapple with life, and therefore desire is born. This hunger, we read about it, to push the clod, to break the inertia, to want, to hope, to feel the pressure of circumstances, so that a greater strength can emerge. Then comes a time when desire becomes a bar, but that's at a later stage. Like again, ego was the helper, ego is the bar. So initially, it pushes the body with desire and hope, imposing on inconscience consciousness. This is the early stir of consciousness. And that's where, see, the mistake comes. Sri Aurobindo gives us the full truth. But otherwise, when people observe superficially, even post-Buddhist philosophy, not what Buddha says again, they have made it that the reason for creation is desire, because they see desire as the first thing that emerges in life. It may be desire for food, it may be desire for just the very basic necessities for life and its propagation. But they have declared that desire is the origin, and question then is that how did divine, who is free from all this, or that perfect consciousness, experience desire? This was one of the big points of conflict between Sri Aurobindo and the mother's husband, because he believed that the world is born from desire, and Sri Aurobindo would say it is born from delight. And desire is simply a very ignorant and blind way of chasing delights that wound us. This is ahna.
Yes.
Chasing delights that wound us until we are ready for the real thing. So we have to start with a toy. So it's a chocolate given to our childlike state. She brought into matters dull tenacity, her anguished claim to her lost sovereign right. This is what is desire. It instinctively feels that it should be happy. It has a right to be happy by whatever means. So it brings that anguish. Otherwise, matter is dull, insensitive, lazy. It can lie in a mountain for whole age. Her tireless search, her vexed, uneasy heart, her wandering, unsure steps, her cry for change. All these things life has brought in to prepare us for its full advent, to receive her. And that's what Supermind is also going to do. Bringing into the realm of mind and life another kind of need, almost a need for the divine. And this we can see that post 1960, there is suddenly awakened in the heart of the earth a tremendous need for spirituality. And it has taken many forms. And unfortunately, people have even opened spiritual markets and capitalized on it. That, well, I am going to fulfill your need, this much money, and I'll, because the need has been felt. But what is interesting is not what people are doing, but the fact that there is a need which has awakened. People are no more satisfied with their religion, their cults. They want more, because this is how the supermind will work. Not immediately reveal, but first awaken a need.
Nolini says that, interesting statement. He says that we may have to take a step down from the mind into the vital.
Yes.
Interesting statement.
Yes. All kinds of things it can do, because its goal is sure. What life did. Mm-hmm. So he is showing us the previous stage of evolution. And it will eventually lead us to the fullness of the supramental manifestation. We have to trust it. And now you see interesting lines. Life at that level. And it would apply to human beings. It also applies in a vaster way to nature when it is still struggling to emerge as the little animal world. Adorer of a joy without a name, in her obscure cathedral of delight, to dim dwarf gods she offers secret rites. Now, we can also take it legitimately on our humanity. In the early beginnings of humanity, in the tribes, and of course there is a primitive man in everyone, people turned for God for satisfying desires. And there are always places and priests who will say, yes, we can fulfill it. It's an amazing thing that in Vrindavan, which is a place of Krishna, so I was very surprised when they took me to, there is a Govardhan Parvat, which, the mountain which Krishna had lifted on his little finger. So they asked that, you can go around this whole mountain, and it's a big, it gives you a lot of, it's good generally. So I said, look, I'm not the walker type and going around the mountain. I'm fine with just being here. They said, no, we can go in a taxi. I said, that beats the purpose. It doesn't make any sense. So, the priest was so insistent, he was not satisfied. So he told, okay, I have a shortcut for you. I said, what shortcut? He said, there is a, small Govardhan. So what is small Govardhan? Something of that look-alike of the mountain, which may be just about 3 feet by 3 feet. So he took me to the place, this is a Govardhan temple. So he said, if you do it 7 times or something, it has the same merit as going around the mountain. I said, I'm not interested. So people who were with me, they were getting a little frustrated. So, they because they wanted, for whatever reason. So they started going around and, chaliye na, please come along. So I quietly dropped out. So after a while, another person dropped out. Nobody completed the 7 turns. But I was just wondering, you go to a place of Krishna, the being of delight, and you are still indulging in desire that if I go around, I will get this desire and that desire. But why this has been allowed? Because attracted by the desire, people come and end up having a darshan of Krishna. So see the game plan. So initially, And even the divine, does that.
Yes.
So when Sri Aurobindo was asked, there are 4 kinds of bhaktas. The lowest kind is those who seek him for fulfillment of desires. So why does the divine allow it? Because eventually you have to get rid of desire. He says, Sri Aurobindo says, perhaps the divine feels that this way maybe he will get attracted and eventually get rid of the desire. So, he starts like that. And there was a story once very famous here. I don't subscribe to it because the mother takes care at all levels. But in the beginning, whatever you ask, mother gives you. But later on, she will not give you because now she wants you to graduate. Of course, my experience is she always gives only at every level. At every level. But you have not to get caught into that. I suppose it applies when you start turning her into a desire-giving mother and get stuck there. You have to always seek the highest. And she will take care of the highest and the lowest. Because even at that level, it is the divine who gives. So, this whole thing about initially the obscure beginnings of humanity, what kind of gods it worshipped? For what purpose? Let there be no rain, there be no, there should be no storms, and I should be safe, because this was the, worship. To dim dwarf gods, she offers secret rites, but vain, unending is the sacrifice. And that too is inbuilt, because otherwise you will never grow. So you will have 10 times things are fulfilled, 11th time, 12th time it doesn't work out. So you keep on doing it, at the end you realize that there must be some other way. So failure is God's plan, it's inbuilt into our evolutionary program. It is God's way of helping us grow. The priest and ignorant mage who only makes futile mutations in the altar's plan and casts blind hopes into a powerless flame.
Wow.
So this also, another example comes to my mind very often. Even here, people have come, there is something called as Vastu. So Vastu is like mutations in your plan. So you make a house and you take to a Vastu fellow. So he'll say, no, this is not the seat of fire, this should be here. So he alters the whole plan. And of course he makes his own big money. So you want to do it with that. Then again there is a problem, you call the Vastu fellow. So Vastu fellow will come and again say, no, you see there is a problem here. So what is the solution? Break this wall. Hey, it's quite a bit of money, by the way, So couple of times people have come and asked me about Vastu. I say, you see, after turning to Mother and Sri Aurobindo, just put Mother's picture in every room. Why do you want to go through such a complicated process of, mutations? Look at the line. Yeah. Futile mutations.
Yeah.
This change, that change. Okay, let me try this pathy, that pathy. She is the one. Take anything, but take it with faith in Mother. So, But then man doesn't straight away. So futile mutations in the altar's plan and casts blind hopes into a powerless flame. If the elemental gods could give us all we want, then there would be no need of a higher divine. These are elemental entities. They have their play, their role, but they are not, ultimately. A burden of transient gains weighs down her steps. What a line this is. Transient gains weighs down the steps. It becomes a burden. Yeah. I got this on the path. So nice. Now I stop, become a laggard. Carry it like a burden because I don't want to let go. I don't want to leave it. Yeah. Transient gains. That's why much later he would say, heaven's wiser love rejects the mortal's prayer. That also. A burden of transient gains weighs down her steps. And hardly under the load can she advance. But the hours cry to her. She travels on, passing from thought to thought, from want to want. Her greatest progress is a deepened need. Here comes the clue.
There it is.
So even in the world of mind it happens. Every answer opens the door to a fresh question. It's only temporarily that will make you satisfied. Then again a question will come, typically from the mind. In the intuitive realm it's not so, because there is a certitude of knowledge. But at the mental realm, if you try to do it with the analytical thought, you have an answer. They say, but So this but carries on. So similarly, at the level of life, you get it, then there is a deep end need. And that's how the advance goes on. Her greatest progress is a deep end need. Matter dissatisfies. She turns to mind. She conquers earth, her field, then claims the heavens. Reminds me of a story in India of the Vaman avatar. Vaman avatar is one of the avatars of Vishnu who comes right in the middle of the lineage of 10 avatars. So the story is that God becomes a dwarf and comes to ask King Bali, who is the conqueror of the earth, and says, "Give me 3 steps, that's all I need, of land."
Yes.
And his guru warns him, this is not ordinary dwarf. Actually, dwarf man is the symbol of the psychic. And he is still the ego-bound Titanic mentality, though a good guy. So he says, "No, but I have promised him, so I'll give him." After all, 3 steps. So in 1 step, he conquers heaven. Because he has also conquered heaven. So he says, "Give me that." The next step, he conquers earth. He says, "Where do I put my 3rd step?" So King Bali says, "Now the only thing left is my head." So with the 3rd step, he puts him behind. Sri Aurobindo reveals this about the dwarf who towers to heaven. Another place also in Savitri.
The divine dwarf.
Yes, the divine dwarf.
Yes.
Towered to heavenly heights.
Yes.
And he speaks about the symbol of this story. So it's interesting that the sequence is first heaven, the inner being. Then the psychic being turns towards conquering matter. Then eventually the ego has to be pushed down. That's the last victory. So that's how it claims. Matter dissatisfies, she turns to mind. She conquers earth, her field, then claims the heavens. Insensible, breaking the work she has done. The stumbling ages over her labor pass. But still no great transforming light came down, and no revealing rapture touched her fall. Still she waits, cries for that transforming touch.
Yes.
Only a glimmer sometimes splits mind sky, justifying the ambiguous providence. It is ambiguous because providence is supposed to provide, but providence also snatches away. Sri Aurobindo says that in an aphorism, providence is not only that which saves me when all the others are drowned in a capsize, the boat capsizes. Providence is also that which snatches away my last straw of hope while all the others survive, escape, and I am drowned. So that also is providence. It has its own way of working. So it is ambiguous. We really don't know which way it works, but everything is, providence. It can push out people from their comfort zone for a greater becoming. Justifying the ambiguous providence that makes of night a path to unknown dawns, or a dark clue to some diviner state. You were just speaking about that Nalnidas, that from mind below into the vital, because it has not been worked upon.
Yes.
We have gone into a mental development, but without really working upon the vital. So it's quite likely that individuals and collectively, individually it happens, definitely in yoga, that temporarily you can be pushed into a state which you thought you have gone through, and then you have to work upon it. When this becomes clear, suddenly there is a leap and a flight. So there is, in all likelihood, as a collectivity, we may have to go through that state. Even night becomes a passage. So those who judge the supramental action based on superficial appearances and this is happening in the world, that always something is happening which is not good, at least to our eyes.
Yes.
But we have to understand that the ways of the divine are full of deep compassion and wisdom, and they are instinct with a perfection, and at the end nothing is left untouched with that light that makes of night a path to unknown dawns, or a dark clue to some diviner state. We experience it all the time when, in the room, things are settled in a certain way. This is very latest experience because I had invited Sergey to come home and I was thinking that, at least my room should be presentable. I said, yeah, it's good, presentable. Then I realized there's a lot of dust. Now, if I have to clear the dust, I have to undo everything. So I didn't have the heart or the courage, But that's how all evolution operates. There is an undoing. Temporarily, there is a kind of disorder, but at the end, there is a beautiful order.
Yes.
So night, if somebody was to come during that time when the cleaning is going on, say, oh my God, what a mess, what a chaos.
Yeah.
So the supramental cleaning in nations and in the world is appearing like that. But actually it's a cleaning process. In nescience began her mighty task. In ignorance she pursues the unfinished work. For knowledge gropes, but meets not wisdom's face. So that is how life has entered, and that's how all evolution happens.
And now these 4 extraordinary
Marvelous lines. Ascending slowly with unconscious steps. Doesn't know where it is going. Driven by instinct. A foundling of the gods, she wanders here. Like a child soul left near the gates of hell, fumbling through fog in search of paradise. This is the predicament of everyone who strives for evolution. Only when you are looking for paradise, you are miserable and hopeful at the same time. If you don't know, if you are simply moving with unconscious steps, then you meet hell and you fumble into paradise and you say either chance or karma based on whatever school of thought you subscribe to.
Yeah.
We'll read a few more lines. We have some time. In this slow ascension, he must follow her pace. This he is now man. It started in the beginning on the first page. He must follow her pace. Of course, Ashupati also will go through this ascension. But here specifically referring to man cannot straightaway break through, even though he has a soul which is open to the divine. It can really reach to great heights, but it has to go step by step. That is one of the problem of human life and human cloak. Mother speaks about it, that even if you are a liberated being, when you enter into the body, you have to still struggle to come out, and it takes quite a bit of time and quite a bit of waste in the process. So she didn't want that, and that happens because of the kind of reproduction, the sexual reproduction. It invariably, the seed is cast into a womb of darkness, a moment of unconsciousness, and that's why she spoke about conscious birth and eventually transmutation. All this she has spoken about, because this process, then you have to depend on food, so you absorb all the unconsciousness of matter and of the animal and the vital world. Yet that's how life is. In this slow ascension, he must follow her pace, even from her faint and dim subconscious start. So only can earth's last salvation come. For so only could he know the obscure cause of all that holds us back and baffles God in the jail delivery of the imprisoned soul. Now you see this one-liner, in the jail delivery of the imprisoned God. This is clearly alluding to Krishna's birth. Jail delivery of the imprisoned God. He is born in the prison of the ego. And he has to struggle and fight a battle. First he has to recover himself, his own delight. Then only he is ready. First he has to fight the small little enemies. Then he is ready to have the direct fight with the ego. Kansa, who is his own alter ego. He is instrumental, strangely, in his birth. Yes. Thanks to the prophecy and everything. And eventually he will die. So, it's amazing. Jail delivery of the imprisoned soul.
And Raman Maharshi would say only one thing: who am I?
Who am I? That was his process.
And Socrates,
yes,
know thyself.
Because they didn't have to thankfully, work for transformation. So it was enough to be aware of yourself. But in transformation, as we were coming up with Anmol, we were discussing, we have to become aware of all the world play and the forces. You have no choice. Because this is the field given to you. You can't be ignorant of the field. That's why Gita takes at great length, it speaks about the field and the knower. Because in Karma Yoga also you have to know the field.
Yes.
But if it's a yoga of liberation through jnana, you don't need to know the field. The field has to be rejected in toto. It doesn't matter. Throw it aside. Even if it is there, you are not that. That's why those who say I am that, Mother has taken a dig at that in agenda. She says, yes, I know that philosophy. There are books written on that. I am that. Soham asmi. Of course, you will discover yourself if you persist. It's not easy. It's not an intellectualization that I am that. But after maybe 10 years, 20 years, or depending on the preparation, who knows, 10 lives, you will discover who you are. But the rest of nature, it's just the same. So the divine will say, all right, you know who you are, I know who you are, but what good is it to the world? It was a perfectly useless thing. I had deliberately made you forget who you are so that you can work through the slow ascension. But you were in a hurry. So, and now you see these lines. Along swift paths of fall through dangerous gates. You see, this is exactly how even the human birth takes place. The jail delivery of the imprisoned soul. The womb is almost like a jail, physically. For a seer who will be born out of this womb, for a hero whose destiny starts in the womb, and then fall through dangerous gates, literally in one line, those who are involved in know a little bit about obstetrics, though it's a natural process. But you can't imagine for the baby, this is the first moment of crisis. He doesn't know it, of course. He's safe in his comfort zone. But the entire, the mother's world gets revolutionized. And so does the baby world. With this one moment. So dangerous gates. But these gates have to be passed through if you have to awaken to a new life. The cry of life. Along swift paths of fall through dangerous gates, he chanced into a grey obscurity. Teeming, now this is of course Ashupati, teeming with instincts from the mindless gulfs that pushed to wear a form and win a place. This is what we call in our ignorant medical languages bacteria and viruses. These are the materialization of what Mother has said, obscure will in matter. Mostly, they can become very good instruments for ill will, sometimes also of good will. They are nothing but conduits, materialized. They are just primitive life forms. But they immediately pick up. If there is a bad will in the atmosphere, they easily carry it happily. And whoever is near or whoever is open, whoever is receptive, susceptible, the ground is ready, so many things. It goes and enters. Simple thing like fear. Oh my God, dengue, that's enough. So dengue says, here is somebody calling me, like when you call God, God comes. If you call dengue and chikungunya, they also come. They also know. Here is somebody who is calling me, and the calling bell is fear, fear, fear. Here is a ready ground.
Door is open.
Door is open. But instead if we say ma, 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 then even if it enters, poor fellow becomes just little body ache for 1 or 2 days and goes away. And we simply say, no, this was nothing. So this is the elemental energies. He chanced into a grey obscurity, teeming with instincts from the mindless gulfs that pushed to wear a form and win a place. Nobody knows till date how the viruses are born. No one knows how they are created, or those early life forms, even before the viruses. Life here was intimate with death and night. That's how, they are basically instruments for that purpose. And ate death's food that she might breathe a while. They feed upon matter, they feed upon little bit of life. Poor fellows are looking for energy. So wherever they get it, they go and they eat it. These viruses cannot survive unless they find a living cell as a host. then only they survive. Otherwise they can't survive. So they keep searching for, where they can eat. But in the process, they fell the whole body and the system. She was their inmate and adopted waif, life, accepting subconscious in dumb darkness reign, a sojourner, she hoped not anymore. There, far away from truth and luminous thought, he saw the original seat, the separate birth of the dethroned, deformed, and suffering power. This power is life. But whereas it entered into matter, it is deformed, dethroned, and therefore it suffers, but cannot break free and has to accept the conditions, because otherwise matter will not be ready to be pushed to that height. It cannot suddenly wake up to that glory. So it says, all right, like the divine has accepted to be like us, played with us like as if human beings, suffered us. Many people looking at their humanity questioned, are you really divine? And the mother at one place says, yes, I know, if I had 1,000 arms, then you will understand that I am divine. But because I have 2 arms and I cannot do things the way a goddess in her world does, that's why you cannot understand. This is suffering. If you look at it from the divine point of view, intense suffering. But unless he does that and ties himself to our humanity, we won't take a single step.
Yes.
So life has tied itself to this obscurity, suffers it.
Yes.
Even dethroned power. Mother, Sri Aurobindo would ask for, is it possible to do this? I mean, he just had to command. Mother, who is the, Lord of the worlds, who could give any amount of wealth to anyone, has to sell her own saris to have some money for the ashram. Dethroned power. She is the original power, whom, and so many people who could pray to her and would get things. But for herself, just to maintain the ashram and its upkeep, Sri Aurobindo, he says that God has contracted a bad habit. I know he will provide, but he has contracted the bad habit of providing at the last moment.
Yes.
When they don't know whether they will have the dinner or not. With all the powers at his command, but he cannot do it because he has to delve into matter's darkness deep. Otherwise there will be no change, no transformation. He would become another Babaji, doing greater miracles. That's how the overmind world had to be dissolved. Last few lines. An unhappy face of falsity made true. This is the lower vital creation. Now he is taking us after the background. The cockroaches, the dinosaurs, the reptiles, the lizards. Lizards are still okay, but the insect world, direct projection of the lower vital. No, because they heat away the mosquitoes and all that. So they are actually nice guys. An unhappy face of falsity made true, a contradiction of a divine birth, indifferent to beauty and to light. So many of this insect world you will see is really hideous. And when mother was asked particularly about cockroaches, she said, yes, they are the projections of the lower vital world. That's why there is no beauty, nothing. If you look at it, And things like mosquitoes, of course you can kill it. Don't worry about the Jains. And people who believe that all life is sacred. This is not life. This is pure darkness which has come to fill all with diseases. Ramakrishna, when somebody went to ask him, can we kill mosquitoes? He had this question in his mind. And when he went, Sri Ramakrishna was himself killing them. He had given the answer before the question. Sri Aurobindo was also asked this. So mother said, earlier I used to drive them away with my yogic force. Then Sri Aurobindo did not approve of it. Since then I have stopped it. How beautifully she says. Sri Aurobindo did not approve of it. parading, she flaunted her animal disgrace. Of course, there are beautiful animals, but there are also animals which are hideous forms. Unhelped by camouflage, brutal and bare. You know, these monitor lizards and all these, or the dragons, which are really forms which look, what could have made these? And they are full of, invariably these forms have disease carrying capacities. Unhelped by camouflage, brutal and bare, an authentic image recognized and signed of her outcast force exiled from heaven and hope. Still within them, it's the same force struggling and laboring. Fallen, glorying in the vileness of her state, the grovel of her strength, once half divine, the graceless squalor of her beast desires. So this is the tragic fate, but a moment's tragedy without which evolution could not be. Therefore, life has accepted this disgraceful and disdainful state to give hope to matter. So we'll stop here and continue.